Hello everybody, welcome to That's Football. So England are back in trouble again. What a surprise, what a shambles of a performance at Wembley last night, losing 2-1 to Greece. And look, Lee Carsley cannot be the manager of England. He's blown it. If you want an analogy, basically, big job interview, walk in, start really well, feel a trump coming out, let it out, and you shit yourself, and everyone knows it. It's done. It's over. You can't come back from that because the media's unforgiving. I don't think he really spoke that well afterwards either. But you cannot play a team that's got Bellingham, Foden, Saka, Gordon, and who else? Cole Palmer in it, and no striker. It was a shambles. I've very rarely seen anything so bad. I don't want Southgate back. I think Southgate's a crap coach, but the positive of Southgate, if you can call it that word, was he was boring, pragmatic, and won games in a boring way, and then got found out at major tournaments. We're getting found out against Greece at home with something that's sort of like, if I let Seb in charge, he'd pick all the players he wants. Like, you've got to have a structure. And I like Lee Carsley. I think he's done some really good things. But where do we go from here? Get in the comments, because I like Lee Carsley. I like the fact that he's made big calls. He's dropped people who aren't playing for their club team, etc. But the job's too big for him. And it's not his fault. Like, fair play. If he'd have won last night, he's probably going to get the job. And ultimately, what we really need to focus in on here is the FA. All my life, they've been absolutely abysmal at the top in making decisions for years and years and years. There is so many of them. And again, this probably is a good thing for English football, because what would have happened is if Lee Carsley had drawn yesterday or won yesterday and then won his next game, he'd probably get the job. And they'd go, oh, that's nice and easy. Another puppet we control on cheap money who's just desperately grateful for us for giving him a job. Whereas now everyone's looking at it. In a way, I'm glad it's happened, because the Nations League's irrelevant anyway, but they can't give Carsley the job. So they've got to go and do what they should have been doing for the last 30 years, which is going and getting the best person for the job. Now, whether that's Eddie Howe or whoever, I don't know, but you can't give it to Lee Carsley. The step is too big. And look, maybe he had a chance. Maybe even I thought he had a chance. But for me, now you've got to go and get somebody good. And last night was just a lesson in why you can't give it to Lee Carsley and why he probably won't ever have a Premier League job, because that was incredible. When I heard that Harry Kane was injured, I was like, will you pay Ollie Watkins now? Ollie Watkins will play on the last man and we can... I don't think England are far off in what they've been doing. I don't think the England team, a back four, a midfield three, two wide men and a forward, I don't think we're far off being a very, very good team once Harry Kane's out the team, dropping into the midfield, getting in the way of Bellingham and Foden and everybody else. You put Ollie Watkins in last night. All he wants to do is play on the last man. Solanke as well. All they want to do is play on the last man. And you've got all that creativity. He gets the opportunity to do it with Harry Kane being injured, and he doesn't do it. So for me, it's like, look, the one thing I want to see is Watkins or Solanke or somebody else, a last man striker playing on the last man. He doesn't do it. And how are you going to get Cole Palmer, Phil Foden, Bellingham, Saka and Anthony Gordon playing well in the same team? It's just, if you want another definition of what that would be like Arsenal playing with Saka, Palmer, Foden, Bellingham, and who was the other one? Cole Palmer, Anthony Gordon, Saka. There was 5 anyway. I might have forgotten Bellingham. So you can't do it. You can't do it. There's too much creativity there. And just because you play 5 creative players doesn't mean you're going to get 5 times the creativity. You're still dealing with the same... Look, if I break a game down, maybe as a number 10, I'm going to get 10 opportunities in a 90-minute game to create or do something. Statistically, I'm probably going to get about 10 opportunities per game. If you've got 5 number 10s or 5 creators, that's 2 each. If it works like that. You're not going to get 50. It doesn't work. So, baffling. Absolutely baffling. Where do England go next? Look, I think that Eddie Howe at Newcastle is very interesting. He's done very, very well at Bournemouth and Newcastle. He gets the best out of what he's got. And England, I think that works quite well. For me, it sounds silly, but Man United are talking about changing their manager, so I've got a good understanding of what the managerial market is. There's not a lot in England, but there are a lot of managers that have managed in England that are not English. I mean, Thomas Frank, why not? Tuchel, why not? Pochettino's took the United States job. That was probably a missed opportunity as well. I'm not bothered about going English. The problem with going English is you end up with Gareth Southgate, you end up with Lee Carsley, and respect, I know there are people out there England should be managed by an English manager. Well, why? You know, if you support West Brom, have you got a whole English team? If you support Arsenal, have you got a whole English team? Why? Why does it matter? It doesn't matter. We've had players play for England that weren't born in England. So as long as I think it helps if they've managed in England. I understand that because you've got an understanding of the Premier League. I would have that argument. If we're going to bring somebody in, let's hope they've managed in the Premier League to understand what the Premier League's all about. 100%, I agree with that. But I don't think you need an English passport. But it can't be Lee Carsley. And I think actually we are in trouble. But we're only in trouble because of the FA. And the FA have been doing this for years. And I think actually, when I think about it, what happened last night is probably quite a good thing because they would have been rubbing their hands together that they were going to give Lee Carsley the job and have another Southgate on their hands. And they haven't. And they can't. They're going to have to recruit. They have to do a proper job of recruitment. Now, some people say that was going to happen anyway because they put the job application out there. But I think that was a bit of a smokescreen. I think they were always looking to go with Lee Carsley. Spain have done that as well, haven't they? So, but they can't do that now because that was an embarrassment. That was a shambles. And to have that on your CV before you've been given the job, it's a big red flag. And I think the job's too big for Lee Carsley. I quite like the way that we started off against Ireland and other teams, but it's not France, is it? It's not Brazil. And I think when he speaks in interviews and stuff, it's very clear that that's probably not what he's strong at. He's a coach. So no, you've got to move on. But I'd be interested to see what people say in the comments because I think another big problem for England is if you look at what he did last night, it's how do you get Cole Palmer, Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Saka, Gordon. I mean, you've still got people like James Maddison as well. How do I get all these creative players in the team? I know, I'll drop a striker. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. England did this for 6 years under Sven, where we would put Scholes, Lampard, Gerrard in the same team because they're like, oh, well, but they're three of the best midfielders in the world. We've got to start them. It never works. Balance is what you need. If you have to bench good players, let the press bitch. I don't give a shit. Ultimately, do a press conference and say, look, I can only pick 2 of those 5. So really, it's about what they do in an England shirt. But I don't think that. I think that England under Southgate became about nepotism, it became about favouritism, it became about mates rates. And unfortunately, I think with England, I can already say, would we ever drop Bellingham? I don't think we would. I think already Bellingham, because he plays for Real Madrid, he's got that aura. We've got to play Bellingham. And I probably would agree with that. But if you're going to pick Bellingham, that means you probably can't pick Palmer or Foden because he plays where they want to play. And you can't put them on the wing. They're not wingers. They have to go to the bench. And look, ultimately, there's a big, long list of players that didn't play much for their national team. Look at Italy over the years. Look at the amazing... I mean, Totti didn't always get picked because they had people like Del Piero, Baggio, etc. So I don't think Baggio and Totti crossed over, but they had a lot of players like in that position. You've got... I said this in the World Cup in 2002. We had Nicky Butt playing next to... I can't remember who played in the midfield next to him, and it worked. And then in the next tournaments, it was always Scholes and Lampard and Gerrard. And I'm like, we actually need a Nicky Butt. We actually need a Michael Carrick. You need a holding midfielder and drop one of the other 2. But we won't do it, and I think we're heading towards that again. Anyway, get your comments in below. Make sure you smash a like on the video. An absolute shambles, but ultimately, it could have a silver lining if it means we go and get a proper manager. For me... I like the idea of Eddie Howe, but I also like the idea of a foreign coach that's managed in the Premier League. And I don't... Thomas Frank, Thomas Tuchel, whatever. Thomas the Tank Engine, yeah. But no, look, I like Lee Carsley, but the job's too big.